if you are unfamiliar with this channel and you just happened upon this video, or you don't know what I spent a lot of my time on in April, I want to point out two things, because I'm sure that's the first thing you notice, is that my place is a bit of a mess right now. So I, on this channel, like to be really real. Usually, most times, no makeup, no fancy hair, really no preparation. I barely plan anything when it comes to this channel. And yeah, so sometimes I feel self-conscious, and that's part of being vulnerable and real with you, is that I'm looking at this view right now and recognizing that the bed is unmade and there's tons of stuff on my couch. The couch is related to what I did in April, which was a big spring cleaning challenge. And for that project, I have been going through my home a lot slower than I wanted to be honest, or planned to. I have been, and this is a side note, this is not what the video is about, but just a quick little intro, is that stuff on my bed is all stuff that I'm donating or selling. And then the past few days I've also felt really tired, so you can't see it, but right behind my shoulders there's also a pile of clothes that I need to organize. So anyways, you know, I feel like it is so important to be vulnerable and real, and yeah, why not talk about insecurities? That's really one of the big bases of this channel. And what I wanted to get into, and the title of this video reflects, and I'm just realizing now, this video will probably be flagged for demonetization simply because I, at least at the time of recording, used the word drug in it. YouTube monetization. Not that these videos really do not make much money from ad revenue, but it still bothers me when they get demonetized because I'm like, why? Yeah, I mean, I guess in this case, who cares if I end up talking about drugs and want to keep that title? This really, honestly, if this is just rambling right now. When I started recording this video, I titled it, "You Don't Need Drugs to Feel This." And I thought of that title because I was kind of reflecting on whether or not I wanted to do a live video right now. And that idea came to me of how a lot of things I've been experiencing lately feel like things that you might expect to experience or might experience if you're on certain drugs or alcohol. And I have nothing against drugs and alcohol, actually. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. I feel like if they are used, for lack of a better word, properly, and not abused, and there's no crime involved, no addiction or overdosing or manipulation, if you're using them purely for really organized social situations or mind expansion, I think that drugs and alcohol can be okay. Sadly, this is also not meant to be the topic of this, but there's just so many stories of how drugs and alcohol go awry. And I think a lot of people use drugs and alcohol to mask their pain, or to help themselves become more comfortable, or to learn something about themselves, right? We often feel an openness if you're under the influence of something, and it can expand your mind, it can break down some of your barriers and things, and I actually think that that can be a really wonderful experience, but you don't really need them. They're just kind of tools. They're kind of like, in my opinion, and I haven't tried that many drugs, to be honest, so like there's so much that I'm ignorant about in terms of knowledge and also experience, but for the most part, you can tap into a lot of that stuff without taking anything, which is, of course, safer, less expensive, and probably better for your body too, because, you know, the effects of drugs and alcohol can wreak havoc on our bodies. So this isn't meant to be like a little, what do they call it? A PSA? Is that the right term? What's it called? Like an after school special or something. It's just, I was thinking about how I feel like I'm going through a lot of shifts in my life. I don't know if it's really any more than it ever has been, like more frequent. But I just am noticing it more, maybe, or maybe I'm more conscious of how I've kind of been evolving, and I'm kind of blown away by some of the experiences that I've been having by simply reading more. Like, I feel like a lot of us are looking to get further in touch with ourselves, right? We're looking for knowledge. We want to expand our minds and our hearts and our souls. I think that deep down, that is a big drive for most people. And if you don't have the tools, I can see why drugs and alcohol can be super appealing and become addictive, because not many of us know how, or not everybody, I should say, really know how to tap into the deeper levels of our minds and our hearts and our souls. And I love doing that. That's part of the reason I actually had been drawn to drugs, for example. And again, have not done very many, but transparent, I have done some, and I won't go into the details on what, but I've been curious, and that's because I have this draw to experiencing life and awakening consciousness and all of that. And I think it's just like an experience curiosity, right? And it's low level because I also know that for most of my life, I've found other ways to tap into it, right? I started meditating before I even knew what meditation was. I remember spending a lot of time growing up by myself in the woods. I grew up near some beautiful conservation land and lots of woods, and it was very safe where I grew up, so my parents would kind of let me roam around a lot since a super young age. Which sounds crazy, like I can't imagine letting my kids, if I have them, do that, which is also really sad. But anyways, I had that freedom, and there was something about being bored a lot of the time and trying to entertain myself. So I was really into it. I feel like a lot of kids do this, but like, you know, fantasizing, making up things, playing games. And I did a lot by myself. Maybe I've always been on the introverted side of things, where when I reflect on it, I remember just spending a good amount of time by myself. My sister and I are 6 years apart, so she wasn't around, you know, or by the time I kind of wanted to play with somebody else, I think my sister wasn't around or old enough. And since I grew up in such a small town, you know, I had a neighbor who's still to this day my best friend. But if she wasn't around, you know, I would play by myself. Anyways, the long story short is that I kind of fell into like a natural version of meditating as a kid. And I remember in my teens, I was very fascinated by things like witchcraft, where I was really interested in like mind control and communicating with people in new ways. And I started to get really fascinated by like seeking a deeper level of myself. And I think like that witchcraft idea for me was really like a draw towards, and actually, you know, it's funny, I haven't really talked about this in a while, so I'm like having all these aha moments, sharing this with you, and hopefully you're having some too. That's always my aim, is for other people to have realizations about themselves through my stories. So I remember just being very drawn towards like power in like a positive way of how can I impact the world. I was very curious about what I was capable of, and magic, and like I said, witchcraft, which is kind of on the dark side of things, but like I remember what I envisioned as witchcraft was like, again, it was a lot about magic. It was about like tuning in and finding some inner power and knowledge and being able to do certain things, make certain things happen. And I remember just trying to like experiment with that as a kid, like just trying to see what I could do with my mind. And every movie that was about that I was interested in. And I don't know if I read many books or any books about that, but I was just like pulled into that, right? And it's interesting now, many years, not that many years, but it feels like another lifetime ago, being that age. Looking back at it and seeing the parallels between how I am now and how I'm still kind of looking for the same sort of thing, which is just deeper ways to tap into myself. And that's what I mean where in the title of you don't really need drugs to feel this is like some of the drugs that I have tried and alcohol too actually have a very similar feeling as I get when I'm really tuned into myself. Meditation can actually feel like a drug-like state. It really can. And I actually remember too, that's so funny, I had another flashback to it being a teenager. And there was one time in particular where and this is kind of dark, but I remember I was really upset, really emotional. I've always been an emotional person. I think most people are, but some of us just kind of feel it differently or express it differently. And I remember I was really upset probably about a boy, and I was lying in my room wondering if I could will myself to die. Like I said, dark. But I remember there was this moment, I got myself into like this trance-like state, and I felt this fear of, oh no, I better be careful because it feels like I have the actual control to just like stop my heart or switch off and I haven't thought about that maybe since it happened. It's so weird just how sharing brings out memories. And anyways, I think what I was experiencing then, I don't know if it is possible. I guess anything is possible, but I don't know if there are stories of people like willing themselves to die. Again, maybe we don't need drugs to kill ourselves. That's really morbid. And I'm laughing at that and like, in the sense that like, you know, people do choose to end their lives and usually that's, or not, I don't know if it's usually statistically, but you know, people often do that with drugs, right? So I feel like drugs are just kind of the shortcut. It's like if you want a deep experience, if you want to feel more comfortable, and even to the extremes, like you want to hurt somebody or hurt yourself, we'll use drugs. But what I'm trying to say is that our mentality, our minds are so powerful. I wouldn't be surprised if we could will ourselves to death if we really, really wanted to. It seems almost counterintuitive, like our brain would fight off. But my coming back to my original point was that I remember feeling like I had so much control over myself. I got scared, and I'm like, I gotta stop thinking about this, because what if I actually could end my life simply by asking my brain to do that, right? I remember it was like I got into this deep state that was really scary, right? And that memory just reminds me, I haven't gone back to that place. I haven't wanted to, and I haven't even thought about it. But I just feel like we're capable of things that we don't even realize. And that's really the big point. Now, through all these different ideas, right, of what we choose to do. And I think that's just like one of my big passions is helping people tune into themselves, because I love tuning into myself and understanding myself more and more. I had this great talk with somebody today who I don't think I'd ever met. It was at a conference. She was a friend of my friend Jason's, and she had done this great talk the day before at this health conference that I went to, and we ended up just chatting. And she's kind of like an intuitive person. She's a coach. She used to be a massage therapist, and she was actually doing body work on me. She was rubbing my hands, rubbing my shoulders and my head. And the first thing she said was, "Wow, do you get headaches a lot?" And I said, "No." She's like, "What is this that I'm feeling in your hand? It feels like so much stress up in here." And she's like, "Do you get like sore necks?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she's like, I feel like you're holding on to a truth that you haven't yet had the courage to speak out. And I don't know, that was a very vague thing for her to say. But anyways, that started us in this whole discussion that was really eye-opening. And I chose for this year in 2018, I set an intention to get to know myself on a deeper level. I want to go deep with myself this year and let go of limiting beliefs, uncover the fears that are holding me back, because I want to take some really big steps in, especially my professional life. And it's funny, sometimes you get what you ask for, and you got to be careful what you ask for, because it can come in really strong ways. And so for me, I didn't really expect it to come in this form, but there's been a number, and actually even just in the past week or so, there's been a number of things that I've been uncovering about myself that are really intense. I talked about that in the previous video on this channel, and the fear of feedback is a big one for me. But then it's like, I thought that was a big aha moment, and then I talked to this woman that I just meet for the first time, and she's picking up on things about me. And actually, no, wait, that's the third time that's happened. Whoa. All of that's happened in the past week and just like a few days apart from one another. I don't know if it's something about this week, this month. Not sure what's going on, but my point is, like, I've had 3 really intense talks with people. 2 of them I just met for the first time, and one of them is a really good friend of mine. And each of those people I'd seen something within me that I wasn't clear on myself. And so by having those talks, coupled with reading books, listening to podcasts, audio books, just diving deep in, I'm also pausing for a second because this is reminding me that I want to watch some TED Talks. Actually, the main reason that I turned on the camera and went live with this video and started thinking about everything that I'm sharing is because oftentimes when I get on this channel, I get this feeling in my heart and my gut of like wanting to release some thoughts and emotions. And this channel is really like a kind of a diary. It's just a lot of sharing what's going on in my life, and I love chatting with each and every one. Right now I have some live viewers that haven't said anything yet, which is fine. Some people want to talk, some people don't, but know that if you have anything ever that you want to share with me, I love reading your comments. And I have a whole new system now where I can respond to comments a lot faster, which is awesome. Anyway, so a lot of these videos, the spontaneous ones, are just based on like a heart-centered feeling or a gut feeling, and that's part of the thing too that's shifted a lot for me, is getting, the more I get in tune with myself, the faster it is to make decisions, which is something I've been working on for a while. I tend to be indecisive and get stuck. I still get stuck on things. I have obstacles. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. So my point is I was going to say I want to watch some TED Talks because I am working on a talk that I'm giving in a few days. And like just saying that out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's only a few days away. I'm talking on Thursday, and today is technically Monday morning now. And I'm so excited but nervous, and I'm like pouring so much. This talk that I'm doing on Thursday is kind of manifesting into a really big deal for me. And I'm nervous because hold on, before I get to that, I just noticed some comments come up. Luke John said, this talk is way better than my question. What are your thoughts on disposable razors? I love that question. Okay. I am not a big fan of anything disposable. Thus the name Eco Vegan Gal came out of my passion for the environment. I'm not a perfect environmentalist. I use disposable things and single-use things. I just try to keep it to a minimum and then recycle anything. And in fact, as the very beginning of this video, if you're just joining live, then you didn't hear me say this, but you know, all the stuff on my couch are things that I'm donating, selling, or giving away in some capacity. And so I've got like piles of stuff, and I'm keeping it on my couch so that I will handle it and not just keep it shoved in my closet for years, which I've done for a while. And I also, in my closet right now, it's driving me crazy in a good way, as I have boxes and boxes of personal care items, such as some razors and things like that. And my intention is to go through every item and figure out how to properly dispose of it. Because for years, I've been just throwing things in the recycling bin, and through the past month of April, through my tidying and organization project, I started doing some research on recycling, which I haven't really looked into for many years, and discovered that a lot of the ways that I was thinking I was recycling things properly isn't quite right. So I'm using this as an opportunity to learn more about recycling and figure out how to properly sort out my stuff and send it to the right place versus just in the blue recycling bin that goes out on the sidewalk once a week. So that's a long answer, but I would say for razors, the most eco-friendly thing that I know of is to get one of those like old school stainless steel razors that, you know, mostly men use. So if you're shaving your face, like might be something that you've seen. Like my dad has one of those. I forget, it's called, there's a name for the safety razors, I think is what they're called. And I've read, you know, women use those too to shave their legs and other parts of their body. And so that's, to me, probably the most eco-friendly thing because there's no plastic. The next best thing, in my experience, is to get a razor that's made of recycled materials. There's a company, Preserve is the one that I've used for years, and they have very good razors, and they're made from recycled plastic. They have recycling programs, and so that's like the kind of like light, easier to find option and less expensive, whereas the safety razors, I guess you'd have to invest in the razor and then replace them, and I don't know. I haven't looked into that yet, so thank you for the reminder because I probably should switch over to that. And then straight edge razor, as Tony Stark said. Thank you so much. Okay, so what was I saying? Was I talking about my talk coming up? I don't know do any of you watching remember what I was discussing before the razor question? I felt like I wasn't going to forget it. It kind of was all over the place anyways. Well, all of this has something to do with each other. All of this is about awareness, consciousness, and that is so important to me. I have just asked for, I don't know if it's the universe or God, I don't know who I'm talking to sometimes. I feel like it's all basically the same thing with a different label. And just really silently actually asking for guidance. And I've been getting a lot of guidance from a silent ask. I heard through this podcast interview I did last week, this amazing woman said the best way to get what you want is to say it out loud. And so even though we feel like God, universe, spirit, whatever it is that you believe in, if you believe in a higher force, which, you know, the more research I've done on spirituality and religion, it's like most people believe in that. Even the people that call themselves maybe atheists or something, I'm very ignorant around that because I've never really truly identified as an atheist. I've gone through different ideas about God over my life, but my point is like almost every really good book that I've read about personal development and spirituality has some sort of like messaging about God or spirit or universe or Buddha or, you know, whatever, like Jesus and all these people that have led us. And I feel like it's just really fascinating because I don't feel super strongly about any of them. I just have to trust, based on the way that things happen in my life and other people's lives that I know, that there does seem to be some sort of guiding force. And it's actually very relieving. I'm reading several books right now, but one of them has a lot of messaging about God in it. And it just kind of feels nice sometimes when you can ask like somebody or something for something that you want and feel like you don't have to do it all on your own. I think that to me was, over the time that I spent going to church and studying Christianity, and then all simultaneously all the spirituality and Buddhism and all these things that I've looked into over the years, I think one of the things that keeps drawing me back into that is like, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to do life all on our own? You know, and like not just with other people, because as people we're very flawed, but like if there's an unflawed force or being that's protecting us in some way that we can ask things for, I find that not only soothing, but I've also found it to be quite effective. And sometimes I wonder if it's just myself, like as I was saying earlier, we can take we have a good amount of control over ourselves. However, there are things that sometimes happen that don't have any other explanation than there must be something else out there, right? So to my point, when I've kind of asked myself for something, or not just asked myself, asked for something, even when I've never even verbalized it, it has happened. Like I said, how I set this intention for 2018 about unraveling my limiting beliefs and fears. I think I've written it out, but I'm almost positive I haven't said it out loud, and not in like a very concise way. And yet it still happens. And it's hard to find another explanation, right? So like all these people that have really been shifting my thoughts in the past week, what else is to explain? And when you see those patterns, it's like there's something going on here, right? Is that maybe I'm ready for it in a new way, or I'm thinking about it more, or I'm drawing it. I'm becoming a magnet for it, right? So a lot of times the things that we really want and focus on, it just naturally starts to draw inwards, and it starts happening. And I have seen that happen so many times in my life. And that's why I feel like this isn't meant to be like some religious talk, because to me, it's more about, like, I like the word spiritual, prefer that word generally, because it feels inclusive of whatever anybody wants to believe in. It's like a spirit or universal energy. Energy is also a word I like to use to describe these things. I don't know how else any of these things, these big things that have happened in my life, have happened. I mean, I've literally had experiences where I have written down everything that I want. The first example that comes to mind was a couple jobs that I had years ago before I started Eco Vegan Gal, or before I got really serious about Eco Vegan Gal. I had 2 full-time jobs separately, one after another, and literally one of them was working for a huge Hollywood director and actor and producer that I had admired like most of my film career. I wrote down his name in my journal, and I don't remember the exact timing, but I got a job working as a personal assistant for his family. And I remember after I got that job, I looked at my journal and saw his name. And I thought, what? Like, of all people to get a job with, I didn't even look for that job. That job literally came to me shortly after I'd written his name down as like inspiration. I think he was at like the top of my list of people that I was really inspired by. I'll have to go back. I wonder if it might be in here. This is my old film journal. It'd be kind of cool if it was easily accessible, because I just remember like writing down his name. I have no idea where it is. It's been so long since I looked at this, but it might not be in here. I feel like it was in another one, and I don't know where that would be. But I've always been someone that writes things down a lot. Is this? No. Anyways, maybe I'll look for it another time. But my point is that I wrote down his name, and suddenly I got a job working for him, and it was one of the best jobs I ever had. And then when I decided I wanted to leave that job, I wrote down a list. I wonder if I still have this somewhere. I feel like it was on a piece of paper. I wasn't that big into manifesting. Like, these are all evolutions. Like, going back to, like, when I was a kid, like, you know, teenager or younger, like, how I was starting to learn how to tune into myself, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think I was, like I said earlier, I was meditating without calling it meditation. Like, I did not know that's what that was, right? And so back then, in these examples of manifestation, that really got me believing in this is doing something without even knowing what it was. I wasn't intentionally writing down a name and then trying to get that to happen. Now, the second example I was about to share, I wrote it down to get clear on it. So I just wanted to have a list of like what my ideal job would be. And to the T, that job showed up within 24 hours as a job listing ad. I was like looking for jobs because I wanted to change jobs. And literally, it was like jaw-droppingly the exact same description that I'd written down. And it was like, how does this stuff happen without some sort, like, it can't just be our minds, right? Like, I mean, I suppose it could be, like I said, anything's possible, but like, I feel like we're just all connected, and like our brains just kind of are so insanely powerful. And one other thing from this conference that I was at over the weekend, just being reminded how powerful our bodies are, and how many people, doctors and people that deeply study medicine and health, swear that our brain is in control of everything, including our health. Like, we can shift our health, we can shift our lives, we can shift so much through the power of our thinking. And yet we are rarely trained in this. We don't talk about it nearly enough. We don't have enough examples of people talking about that. And I feel more and more compelled to be an example of that, because it's just so powerful. And that goes full circle to what I started talking about on, just drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, right? Like, what if, I don't know if you need to be sober to have the power, but the more clarity you can have, the better you can operate. And I think if you can take the time to really lead a more simple life in terms of how you're eating, how you're living, how you're thinking, whatever you're consuming, the media, like, I found the simpler my life gets, the clearer it is that what I want and what's going to lead me towards true deep happiness. And also the easier it becomes to make things happen, right? Like, even another crazy example is last month when I did my tidying challenge on my main Eco Vegan Gal channel. I don't even know where that idea came from. One day I was like, I should do some tidying. Maybe I should turn this into a 30-day challenge. Okay. And it was just like, I shared that on this channel, actually. I was talking it through on this channel before I started that challenge. And it just happened. And it's like, was that all just a happenstance? Like, did I just happen to think of this? And that challenge was life-changing, right? Because I was clearing away unnecessary things physically and mentally. So if you haven't watched that video or signed up for that series, you still can. I meant to end it at the beginning of May, but I actually put it on pause at the very beginning of May because I haven't finished it yet. I needed a break. It was really intense to do for 30 days, and I'm going to start it back up. So the good news is you can sign up for it if you're watching this video relatively soon. So if you're interested in these things, I feel I've been a bit all over the place. A lot of times I'm kind of fleshing things out in these videos, so I appreciate your patience and understanding. And thank you to Tony and Luke, who reminded me of how I was preparing for my talk. And Tony also said that when you pray, you're supposed to whisper the words out loud. Yes. So for context, if those of you didn't know this, I spent about a year, I think it was, it's such a blur when that happened. I think that was 2016. Yeah, that makes sense. Gosh, life. So nuts. Yeah, so from about mid-2016 to mid-2017, I was going to church every Sunday, a Christian church in LA, and I was getting active in the church. I was volunteering. I was doing all these things. I got baptized again, and it was a really fascinating experience. I did not feel compelled to keep going. I feel very conflicted about religion. I honestly do. I feel like I believe in God, but I'm not sure about how I feel about Jesus. I feel like there's really good messaging in the Bible, but a lot of the ways that the people were talking about the Bible and Jesus and God didn't feel fitting to me. And there's kind of this guilt of, there's all this people that believe it's like the devil is trying to pull you away from things. And so I'm like, sometimes I just feel like, okay, so is the devil like taking over my life? Like, is that what's happening now? Is that why I don't go to church anymore? You know, it's very confusing. I find church, I really just don't know how I feel about it. And I never really have. I do respect a lot of it. I learned so much. And, you know, one of the things that I struggled with when I was going to church was the praying side of it. Is like, it felt really awkward to me to pray. I think it does for a lot of people, but just like, I didn't know what to say. Like, I loved like listening to other people pray out loud. I thought that was always very powerful. And I was so in admiration of people at my church that were my age and were just like amazing at praying, you know? So anyways, that's a little backstory. I don't know. I think that it served a great purpose for me because I learned a lot. And the time that I was going to church was around the time that my grandfather's health was declining, and it meant the absolute world to him that I was going to church. He was not the reason I started going, but I was really excited about it and sharing that with him. And so maybe that was the reason that I was in church. I'm not sure, but it really meant a lot to him. So I was grateful that it happened in that time of my life. So anyways, so I wanted to pick up because Tony and Luke reminded me of where I'd left off like probably 10 or 15 minutes ago, where I was talking about the talk that I'm doing. So this actually also ties into this subject. I feel I've been this way for at least since college. I'm somebody that has so many different like ideas and thoughts, and I have trouble like tying it all together, or it's something that just kind of like happens when it's meant to happen, right? So what I mean is I'm somebody that takes a ton of notes and like has them scattered all over the place. And then in order to like write an essay or put a presentation together or work on a book, whatever I've done, I have needed to like spend a lot of time like pulling it all together and kind of constructing an outline, you know, like I basically approach these things the same way I did in college. And I've also approached it in the sense where I'm a very like 11th hour worker, for better or for worse. It doesn't usually matter that much, but for this talk, I think I'm supposed to have my presentation done like 2 days before to like send to the organizers, which is kind of annoying. Because I'm somebody that would literally stay up all night the night before my presentation and present. I'm presenting at 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, which is super early for me. So I would probably stay up the entire night, and I very likely will, and be completely exhausted, but running on adrenaline and totally be great at it. Like that's typically how I do these things. And maybe I should use this week as an exercise and just getting it done. So what I've been doing is I've spent like the past 4 nights or so really just like composing these notes, and next step probably today, Monday, is to get it into some sort of an outline form and then start working on my slides. And the talk right now is hard for me to verbalize, but the talk is called Radical Social Media Strategies to Create More Power and Profit with Your Brand, I think is the title. That's a long one. And the point is that I'm going to be talking about how so many people use social media in a very superficial way that doesn't pay off. You can get a ton of followers and feel miserable. You can have a ton of followers and not make a lot of money. I see it happen all the time. You'd be shocked, especially in the vegan world, because I've done a lot of coaching and just through friends. Like, I'm amazed at how little some people make when they look like they've it all figured out. Most people don't. Very few people, a lot of people on social media have lucked out. I know hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of content creators. So bloggers, YouTubers, Instagrammers, podcasters, you name it, in the vegan world and health and wellness world. And I've talked to a lot of them in depth. I've heard a lot of them talk at conferences, on podcasts, and the things that are most common is that these people are generally running their businesses off of surface level knowledge. They are not very confident about it, and a lot of their success is based on luck. A lot. You can have two people doing the exact same thing, and one person can get so many more followers and likes and attention, and the other person barely any. Like, sometimes it's just complete luck. Sometimes it's all these like strategies and things that you can do that up your chances. And there's people that buy their followers, like that's also happens all the time, and buy their likes. And there's so much, but it's very, very rare that I've met somebody who's very strategic. I'm very strategic. So even if it doesn't look like it from the outside, like I'm constantly researching and calculating and trying new things, experimenting. And I love doing that so much. It's really fun for me, and I love talking to people about it. So that's why I do coaching, and that's also what the premise of this talk is. So I've just been reading a lot of books to try to center myself. I'm reading this great one right now called The Law of Divine Compensation by Marianne Williamson. And this is the third book of hers I've read. They're all brilliant. She's very into God, and this book is like loaded with God-centered advice. And she's just such a great writer. She also has an approach to God that's like kind of loose on the Bible, because her work was based in this other book called A Course in Miracles, if you're unfamiliar with. That's kind of like, from my understanding, it's kind of like its own, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but it's like, it's biblical, but not like the Bible. It's hard to describe. Ouch. I just hit my heel really hard. Ooh, that hurt. Okay, so I've just been so like in this interesting bubble of like gaining clarity on how to express a lot of the things that I feel. And that's why I'm so grateful for this channel and these videos, and those of you that will let me stumble through it and still watch and are interested in it. It means the world to me as somebody that really looks for permission. This is something that I've realized about myself lately, is that I really have spent a lot of my life waiting for permission to do things. And now I have to find the courage to not have to wait for permission. And that's kind of like what I'm infusing in my talk as well. Is I feel like just so many people get lost in this world of social media and lost in their lives, where they really, really want to live a more fulfilling life. And so few of us understand how powerful we are. So many people, most people I meet have money issues. I do too. But like sometimes my money issues, like if I'm like, wow, if my money issues are blocking me, I can't, like based on my experiences with other people and the money issues that come up, so many people just must be suffering so hard when it comes to money, because the lack of awareness that people have about the words that they say and the way that they handle money, and they block themselves from money. It's astounding to me. And I know I feel like that's one of my big callings, is helping people with figuring out money more, because it really pains me to see how much people struggle with it. So a lot of the things that I'm working on this year are finding cohesiveness in the way that I talk, the things that I say, and the messaging that I put out there, and where I'm going with my brand. You know, I think a lot of these conversations I've been having over the past week with people that are helping me have some realizations, they're guiding me towards more clarity about myself. And that's really the big point that I'm trying to make tonight, is there's so much within us, so much untapped potential within us. And there's so much that we can do, and a lot of it's just about tuning out the noise, spending less time on social media, If you're going to watch YouTube, find channels that really align with you. I struggle with this too. I love watching television, right? You know, I'll probably shut off this video and watch the new episode of Westworld, which is probably not something I should watch before bed. You know, like I love watching television, and yet I should probably be watching TED Talks instead. It's hard. It's hard to shift out of our behaviors, and we often want to escape into, like I said, drugs, alcohol, entertainment, social media. We're looking for answers through those things often, and we're looking for breaks, or we're looking for experiences, and we're looking for comfort. And all that comfort's within us already. All those things are doing is helping us tap into that comfort. But like I said, we're shortcutting it. If we were to spend more time meditating, perhaps praying, or... That was a weird sound. I don't know where that came from. I'm a little freaked out after all this talk. There was like this unexplained tapping sound. Hopefully that was very strange. Sometimes I wonder if I'm, I don't know, even going to say it. All this talk about energy and stuff, and sometimes freaky things happen. So now that I'm a little freaked out, and also it's late, I don't even know what time it is, but I know it's late, and I want to continue reading this book and working on my talk, and maybe watch a TED Talk and not any television otherwise. I think that sounds like a great way to wrap up my night. And I need to start preparing for this big conference because, it's already early on Monday morning. It's going to be here before I know it. I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to share with you more. I've been trying to think of how I could either record my talk and put it up for those of you who aren't able to make it to LA, and or do a separate video either beforehand. I was thinking of like practicing my talk, or I would record it and like afterwards, like do a separate online version of my talk or something. I'm not sure, but I want to make it available for more people, so stay tuned for that. And Carlos asks, am I still taking medication for my eyes? If you mean, a lot of people ask about herpes, because I did the video on ocular herpes years ago, and I'm actually going to work on soon, hopefully, I will create a resource document, because I know a lot of people are struggling with that. And the answer is no, I'm not taking medication anymore. My eyes healed very fast. It felt almost as if I never had ocular herpes, so I'm not sure if that was the correct diagnosis, but if it was, then whatever medication they gave me worked very well. And I do have all that information about what I took, and I have a lot of info. So if that's what you're asking about, stay tuned, because I will be creating like a PDF resource for anybody that wants more tips on that. And ooh, it's raining in Orange County. It doesn't sound like it's raining, but I have my air filter on right now, so normally I can hear it raining because it'll hit the gutter, and it kind of makes this like clunking sound if it's heavy rain. Oh, I'm so excited. I love it when it rains. It's been kind of cloudy the past few days, and I love, love, love that. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you to Artist Infantry for showing up, and to everybody else. I know this talk has been all over the place. It feels a little vulnerable, but thanks for holding space for me and encouraging me to be brave just simply by watching, and helping me work on sharing these different realizations and experiences and lessons and all of that. Sending lots of love to you. I will see you very soon. Usually I try to do live videos on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is later today. I might still be able to do that, but it depends. I have a feeling the next few days, this next week, are going to be like kind of intense for me. So I might just be doing some spontaneous videos, or you might not hear from me until after the event. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens, but turn on the notifications if you want to know when I go live. You can subscribe to the channel so you'll know when those videos are available, and I'll see you next time. Until then, wishing you all the very best with your own journeys, and I always look forward to hearing from you, so feel free to comment on this video if you haven't yet. Okay, bye.